a way to try and connect with young people in the community. You've got to think there's hardly any youth clubs. And when I'm driving around in London, and I often go to chicken shops, and you see young people who congregate, who go to chicken shops, they're either playing games or they're doing something there in some sort where it's become their kind of safe haven, a place for them to go.
But isn't the issue, therefore, why are kids hanging around at chicken shops? Isn't it a more underlying issue? We had Faiza Shaheen on earlier on. We were talking, and she made a great point. We look at the underlying issues here of services and opportunities for young people, so they don't find themselves hanging around in chicken shops. What we're saying is, you stay in the chicken shops. We're going to do all the promotion and all the stuff that we need to do right there.
How do you fight the problem and the cause? Obviously, there are issues with regards to funding which the government needs to address, and they need to make sure that they can at least reintroduce youth clubs. But the underlying problem is, most young people in particular, young boys, do hang out, whether it's chicken shops or other fast food outlets. So how are you going to get the message? I mean, when someone gets stabbed, and there's parents on other media platforms, the perpetrators don't watch these programmes or listen to the radio. So how else are you going to get the message to them in order to enforce that message and to say to them, put the knives down, make a difference, and do something useful and valuable with your lives?
And are you saying what David Lammy is insinuating, and I mentioned earlier this morning, there's been a reaction to it online, that do you think it is targeted to young black children, first of all?
I think it's for everybody within the community. And to say that just, young black men go to chicken shops in particular, I mean, in London, you see a mix of everyone. So in my mind, I'd hope to think that the government are targeting every young man, or as in, a younger demographic, and not specifically going out there to target young black men in particular with this campaign.
We've had a huge reaction from people at home to this. A lot of them agreeing with you, it has to be said, Dal. And one of them said, June, I think this is a brilliant idea. I drive through London. I always see crowds of children of all races hanging around these kind of chicken shops. Anything that might help is worth a try. April says, actually, it might well be that it's targeting young black people. The fact is, young black people are the majority of chicken shop customers, and that gang recruitment and the victims of knife crime are also largely young black people. So what's wrong with trying to get to the heart of that community? It's not racist, it's practical.
Well, you're absolutely right. Disproportionately, minorities are both as perpetrators and victims, certainly in London. But I think this is a wider problem across the whole of the country. But I think what you need to be doing is having a coordinated approach, a public health approach. The services, the youth services, the support services, the glue that was holding our young people together has been decimated. So we have huge cutbacks. We've had huge cutbacks in policing. We've had the government seem to be making gimmicky type announcements. So, for example, we've heard stop and search being increased. Now, I was a police officer for 30 years. I've delivered all my targets on my borough for 2 years running. I had the lowest stop and search rate. You do not need additional powers for stop and search. And I just see this issue around having an advert in a chicken shop as a waste of money,
but
really.
How else are you going to connect with people? Because when I go to, in particular, one of those chicken outlets, which is part of the campaign, is Morley's in South London. And I often go to Morley's, in particular, their Brixton branch. And when I go there, I do see young people in the chicken shop, and they're talking. How else how else can they?
But what you need to do, Ed,
can you connect with those young people?
We don't need to. The government have decimated the youth service, and we now have a situation where we're almost privatising youth service. Are we saying that young people go along to chicken shops, and that's we're going to put all our services there? Actually, we need to be much
getting the message out.
But we need. But so not a message that's effective.
I think part of the problem is, Dal, is that this costs about £53,000. This to actually put money properly into youth services would be millions and millions.
Absolutely.
And that would be, I'm sure, a much more effective way of actually looking at the core issues. But it's the effectiveness they're arguing. Can I just ask you, I mean, one of the things that occurred to me is, first of all, that, there's a potential for alienating youngsters. It does, however way you look at it, look clunky, at worst racist. And I just think back to the message that's on cigarette packets. I can remember when they changed from a softer approach to a cigarettes kill, sort of in the late 90s. A company brought out a cigarette range called Death. And it became a badge of honour to buy these cigarettes called Death because it was kind of taking that message and saying, well, we don't care. And you were talking about youngsters that are being targeted by gangs, getting bought a chicken meal to lure them in. That's how in need they are. Are they going to look at this and think, oh, I didn't know that was dangerous carrying a knife crime?
But
they're going to say, hey, we don't care,
we're
aren't
missing
they?
the point here.
OK.
Regardless whether you're for or against this, it's about trying to get the message out to those young people and to say, listen, what you're involved in, what you're doing is abhorrent.
I get
and
that,
it's
and everyone
wrong.
gets that, but I think
the problem
point...
is, we can't get to them in order to enforce that message. That's the problem.
But I think the point that Kate, I think, is making is that effectively we're talking at young people through this chicken shop campaign. This is the problem that young people will say, that they feel disenfranchised, they feel that the establishment doesn't speak with them. They speak...
There is an alternative. There is an alternative.
There is lots of alternatives. You need to give them a voice, give them some power, give some influence in schools, in youth centres, in society. Don't feel that the only people they have to turn to are these people who walk into the chip shop and groom them. And all MPs are prepared to do is say, we're going to put a bit of a message in a chicken box. They are going to laugh at that. They're not going to listen. They're still going to listen to those groomers because they're the only people that are giving them a voice and giving them any kind of...
But if you look at, with all due respect, if you look at what's actually happening here, is the real thing we need to do is invest in services, the services that have been decimated. So the youth service, the police, support in schools. And what we're actually doing is, I mean, I don't know how much it costs. You said 53,000. And what we're doing, we're now told, well, OK, you've not got all that, but you've got a £53,000 campaign, which most people have already said is stereotyping, patronising, at worst racist.
Is it better than nothing?
No, I don't think it is. It does more harm.
But it's about letting them know...
No, but it does more harm because it shows how out of touch the government is in terms of delivering and engaging with young people. Because actually, you know, I know lots of black people that don't go to chicken shops.
But letting those young people know the stories about that particular person in that area who was connected with knife crime or who sadly lost their lives. It's about getting that message and saying, listen, this is the story, this is what happened to that person. If you get involved with this, you could be next. You can either lose your life or you could end up being in life in prison. It's about the message.
All right, it's an interesting debate, and thanks very much, both of you, Dal and Adoo, for coming on.